The stars shone brightly over the deep black void of space, a never-ending expanse filled with countless worlds. Some were full of life, others nothing but barren rocks or gas giants. But out there, hidden in the farthest reaches of the galaxy, was a world on the edge of extinction, Tellara. Tellara had once been a prosperous planet. Its cities glittered under the warmth of two suns, and its people, the Tellarans, were known throughout the galaxy for their wisdom and peaceful nature. They had technology far more advanced than most civilizations, capable of curing diseases, mastering energy, and exploring space itself. But something had gone wrong. Their climate shifted unexpectedly. Earthquakes, storms, and floods began to tear their cities apart. Resources that had once been abundant started to disappear. The Tellarans tried everything they could think of. They reached out to the many other civilizations in the galaxy, hoping for help, but every message went unanswered. The larger and more powerful alien races, who could easily have solved their problems, simply turned their backs. The once vibrant world was now nothing more than a shell of what it had been. And still, no one came. For decades, Tellara's cries for help were ignored. The planet's leaders were desperate, but they had little left to offer in return. They were not warriors. They did not have the power to force anyone to assist them. Slowly, the Tellaran people resigned themselves to their fate, knowing their planet would soon fall into ruin. No one had ever come to their aid, and it seemed no one ever would. Then, on one quiet, ordinary day, a small human ship entered Tellara's orbit. It was a peaceful ship, not equipped for battle. The crew was small, consisting only of researchers and engineers. The humans, led by Commander Lena Foster, had no idea what they were about to encounter when they first detected the distress signals from Tellara. They had been traveling the galaxy on a mission of exploration, but when they picked up the signal, something inside Lena made her act. She had heard of planets in need of help before, but something about this one, this desperate call, felt different. The ship's crew didn't hesitate. They adjusted their course and headed for Tellara without any thought of the danger. Commander Foster, known for her calm demeanor and deep sense of compassion, felt a responsibility to respond. They weren't just explorers or scientists. They were humans, and helping those in need was what they did best. When the human ship finally landed, the Tellarans were shocked. They had not seen an unfamiliar ship land on their planet in centuries. At first, they believed it to be a dream or an illusion. No one had ever come to help them before. They didn't know how to react. Commander Foster stepped out first, her boots crunching softly on the cracked, dusty soil. She wore a simple silver uniform, her short dark hair catching the sunlight. She looked out at the bleak landscape before her, and then at the faces of the Tellaran leaders, who stood at a distance, unsure what to do. "Hello," she said, her voice warm but firm. "We've come to help." For a moment, no one spoke. The Tellaran leaders exchanged uncertain glances. They had learned long ago to trust no one. Their history had taught them that help from outsiders came with a price, one they could no longer afford. Yet there was something different about these humans. They didn't carry weapons or demand anything in return. They were just offering help. "We are humanity," Commander Foster continued. "We've come from Earth. We know you've been suffering, and we believe we can help you." The leader of the Tellarans, an elderly man named Kel, stepped forward. His once brilliant robes were faded and torn, and his eyes carried the weight of a long life filled with loss. His people were dying, and his planet was crumbling. "Why?" he asked softly, his voice full of disbelief. "Why would you come? After all this time, when no one else would?" Commander Foster smiled gently. "Because it's the right thing to do. You don't deserve to be forgotten." Cale looked into her eyes, searching for any sign of deceit, but he saw none. The humans seemed honest, their intentions pure. Slowly, he began to understand. For the first time in years, there was hope. Maybe, just maybe, they weren't alone in the universe after all. "Please," Kel whispered, "help us." Commander Foster nodded. We will. Together, we'll save your planet. And so, the first chapter of humanity's intervention on Talara began. A tiny crew of humans had arrived, offering their skills, their knowledge, and their hearts. For the first time in decades, the Tellarans felt a spark of hope. The war between them and their dying planet might still be lost, but not yet. Not while humans were willing to fight for them. The journey would be long, and the challenges would be great, but humanity had made its decision. They would save Talara. They would not turn away. Commander Lena Foster stood tall, her eyes scanning the group of Tellaran leaders before her. Their faces were filled with doubt, but there was also something else: curiosity. They had heard stories of humans, but this was the first time they were meeting one in person. To the Tellarans, humans were a mysterious species, known for their resilience and sense of justice. Yet they had never imagined that such a race would come to their aid after so many years of abandonment. Why now? Kale, the Tellaran leader, asked once more, his voice trembling with uncertainty. After all these years, why have you chosen us? Lena took a deep breath and looked at him, understanding the weight of the question. The Tellarans had been alone for so long, and they had learned to distrust anyone who claimed to offer help. But there was no time to waste. The planet's condition was deteriorating fast, and every moment mattered. We believe every life is worth saving, Lena said simply. Your people matter, and your world matters. We've come to help because we can, because we should. Her words hung in the air, soft yet powerful, like a promise. Cal's eyes softened as he looked at the humans, a glimmer of hope flickering in his heart for the first time in years. I am not sure we can trust you, he said after a long pause, his voice steady despite the doubt. We have been let down by others before, and what can your people offer us that we do not already have? Lena smiled gently. We don't come with promises of wealth or power. What we offer is something different: our knowledge, our technology, and most of all, our commitment. We are here to help you rebuild. Kale seemed to study her for a moment before turning his gaze to the rest of the Tellaran leaders. They whispered among themselves in a language that was soft, but filled with urgency. Lena could tell they were weighing their options carefully. The decision they made today would decide the future of their people. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Kale stepped forward again. If you truly wish to help, then show us, he said, his voice filled with both challenge and hope. Prove to us that you are different. Lena nodded, not in the least bit offended by the demand. She understood completely. The Tellarans had been through too much to trust so easily, but humanity had always been willing to prove itself, and this was no different. We'll start with your energy crisis, Lena said, gesturing toward the city in the distance. We have technology that can help restore your power sources, and we can help clean your oceans and skies. Cal's eyes widened slightly. The environmental damage on Talara was staggering. The oceans were polluted, the air thick with toxins, and the planet's core had started to destabilize. There were many who had believed there was no hope left for their home, but if the humans could truly help, it could change everything. Show us, Kale said again, his voice quieter now, but filled with more resolve. Then we will see. The humans wasted no time. Over the next several weeks, Lena and her crew worked side by side with the Tellarans. The humans brought their advanced equipment, and the Tellarans offered their knowledge of the planet's unique resources. It was a slow process, but every day there were small victories. The human engineers set up solar grids to generate clean energy, while the Tellaran scientists worked to improve the efficiency of the systems. Slowly, the planet's power began to return, and so did the hope in the eyes of the Tellaran people. But it wasn't just about fixing the energy problems. The humans also helped restore the planet's natural balance. They introduced new farming techniques to help grow food in the damaged soil, and began to clean the polluted waters using advanced filtration methods. Even the air quality started to improve as the Tellarans worked together with the humans to replace the harmful gases with cleaner alternatives. As the days turned into weeks, the Tellarans began to see real change. The skies, once thick with smoke and ash, now seemed a little clearer. The seas, which had once been poisoned with chemicals, were now starting to recover, and while the work was far from finished, the planet was beginning to breathe again. One evening, as the sun began to set behind the distant mountains, Lena and Kale stood together, watching the progress. The horizon was no longer a dull gray, but instead painted with soft hues of orange and purple. It was a small change, but it was a symbol of something much bigger, a world that was slowly healing. "We did this," Kale said quietly, his voice filled with wonder. Lena nodded, a smile touching her lips. "We did it together." It was a moment of quiet victory, a shared understanding between two peoples who had once been strangers, but were now united in a common cause. The Tellarans were no longer alone, and humanity had proven that they were a force for good, one that would not turn away, no matter how difficult the challenge. For the first time in years, the Tellarans dared to believe in a future. They dared to believe that they weren't forgotten, and it was all thanks to the humans who had chosen to stand by them when no one else would. The news spread across the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. The reports from the Tellaran system were everywhere. Humanity was helping the Tellarans, giving them the one thing no one else had: hope. It was a shocking development. The galaxy had long been used to watching civilizations struggle without intervention. The idea that a species like humanity, with only a small fraction of the galaxy's technology, would step in to offer real help was unsettling to many. On the far side of the galaxy, in a grand council hall filled with alien leaders, the reactions were swift and harsh. The Galactic Council, an alliance of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, viewed humanity's actions as a challenge. They had their policies: never intervene in the affairs of dying species. It was considered the galactic norm. The council members, a mix of proud and ancient races, saw no reason to disrupt their peaceful distance from the planet's troubles. "Humanity's involvement on Tellara is a mistake," said High Chancellor Viren, leader of the Cyrexians, a race of tall, reptilian beings. His deep voice echoed in the chamber, drawing the attention of the other council members. "We cannot allow a species to get involved where they do not belong. The Tellarans' time has passed. They should have accepted their fate like all other civilizations before them." Across the room, the Meditari, a race of peaceful and highly intelligent beings, exchanged concerned glances. But Viren, one of their leaders, a slender being named Aresi, spoke up softly. "Humanity is offering them real aid. They are not asking for anything in return. Why should we stop them?" The Cyrexians were not pleased by the Meditari's words. "Because the natural order must be respected," Viren retorted. "The Tellarans are no different from the countless civilizations that fail to adapt. Why should humanity be the exception?" Another council member, Jar, a hulking, armored being from the warlike Krethic race, grunted in agreement. "The humans are playing with fire. If they start saving every failing civilization, what happens next? The balance of power in the galaxy could shift. It's dangerous." A tense silence filled the room. The Galactic Council, a powerful body that had been in control for centuries, was divided for the first time in ages. Some believed humanity's actions could lead to instability, while others saw it as an act of kindness that could inspire change. Back on Tellara, Commander Lena Foster had no idea that such a debate was raging in the council. All she knew was the task at hand: helping the Tellarans rebuild their world. The human crew had worked tirelessly, and progress was beginning to show. But with every passing day, the strain was beginning to tell on them. Tellara's climate was harsh, and the land was still unstable. Yet the humans continued to push forward, knowing they were making a difference. Then, one day, a message came through the communication system, interrupting the peaceful rhythm of their work. "Commander Foster," came the voice of Lieutenant Harris, the communications officer. "We've just received an official message from the Galactic Council." Lena turned to face him. The serious tone in his voice immediately caught her attention. "What's it about?" she asked, stepping toward him. "It's an ultimatum," Harris replied, his expression grim. "The Council is demanding that we cease our operations on Tellara. They say we're interfering with galactic protocol and threatening the stability of the region." Lena's heart sank. She had expected resistance, but this was more than she had hoped for. "Is there any room for negotiation?" she asked, her voice steady. "They want us off Tellara," Harris said. "No more aid, no more help. They say the planet will collapse on its own, and we must not intervene." Lena stared at the screen in disbelief. The Council, the very group that had stood by and watched countless civilizations fall, was now demanding that humanity stop helping. It didn't make sense. She couldn't understand how the galaxy's most powerful races could be so cold, so unwilling to help those in need. "They can't be serious," Lena muttered, shaking her head. "We're doing the right thing. We can't just leave now, not when we've made so much progress." She stood there for a moment, gathering her thoughts. The Council's order was clear, but so was her responsibility. Humanity had made a promise to the Tellarans, and she wasn't about to break it. "We're not going anywhere," Lena said firmly, her voice rising with conviction. "We've come to save them, and we're going to finish what we started. We will not be intimidated." As Lena made her decision, the rest of the human crew rallied behind her. The engineers, scientists, and medics all agreed. They had come to Tellara to help, and they weren't going to stop now. But the threats from the Council would not be easily dismissed. A silent war had begun. The Council, angered by humanity's defiance, would stop at nothing to push them off Tellara. Subtle sabotage, interference, and covert operations were already being planned by the galaxy's most powerful races. They were determined to keep their grip on the galaxy's order, no matter the cost. And so, the humans would have to face not only the challenges of restoring a dying world, but also the powerful forces that would do everything in their power to stop them. As Lena looked out over the horizon of Tellara, she knew that their fight had only just begun. They had made a stand, and no matter what the Council did, humanity was ready to defend their choice. They would not let the Tellarans fall into despair again. They had come to save them, and they would fight to the end to make sure they succeeded. The days following the Galactic Council's ultimatum were tense. Commander Lena Foster and her crew knew that their mission to help the Tellarans was now at risk. The Council's anger was palpable, and rumors of covert actions against them began to spread. Humanity had taken a stand, and the galaxy was watching closely. Would they be able to hold their ground against such powerful forces? Lena sat in her small office aboard the human flagship, staring at the star map before her. Tellara's system glowed in the distance, the heart of their struggle. She could see the faint outlines of several Council ships in orbit, silently watching. They were there, but they were biding their time. Lena knew it wouldn't be long before the Council made their next move. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. "Come in," Lena called, straightening up in her chair. Lieutenant Harris stepped in, his face more serious than usual. "Commander, we've detected something unusual on the far side of the planet. A fleet of ships is approaching." Lena's pulse quickened. "The Council?" she asked, standing up quickly. "We don't know yet," Harris replied. "But it's not a regular patrol. They're moving fast, and their signatures are different. We think they're preparing to engage." Lena's mind raced. If the Council had sent a fleet, this was no longer just a diplomatic issue. This was about survival. The human crew couldn't face an entire fleet on their own. But they weren't just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for the Tellarans too. "Prepare the ship," Lena ordered, her voice calm but firm. "Get our people ready. We may need to defend ourselves." As the crew scrambled into action, Lena headed to the bridge. The air was thick with urgency, but there was a quiet determination in every movement. They were ready to face whatever came their way. Humanity had faced worse odds before and had come out victorious. This would be no different. On the surface of Tellara, The Telleran leaders were also feeling the tension. The work that had been done to restore their planet was significant, but they knew it wasn't enough to fully recover. The air was still thick with toxins in some places, and the soil wasn't yet fertile enough to support long-term crops. Still, there was a new sense of hope in the air. For the first time in years, they dared to dream of a future where their world could be saved. Kale, the leader of the Tellerans, met with Lena on the surface to discuss the growing danger. The sky above them had shifted from the soft hues of orange and purple to a sharp, cloud-filled gray. Something was wrong. The humans and Tellerans had only just begun to build their bond, but the sudden threat of war hung over them like a shadow. "I can feel it," Kale said quietly, his sharp eyes scanning the horizon. "The Council will not leave us in peace." Lena nodded, her gaze hardening. "We knew the risks when we came here, but we won't back down." Cal's eyes softened slightly. "I can't ask you to risk everything for us." "You don't have to," Lena replied, her voice steady. "We chose this. The Council may think they can force us to leave, but we're not going anywhere. We'll fight to protect this world, and we'll fight to protect you." Kale looked down at the ground, his mind racing with the weight of the decision that had been thrust upon them. It wasn't just the future of Tellara at stake. It was the future of their people. If the humans left now, all the progress they had made would be lost, and Tellara would fall into ruin once again. "I hope we are making the right choice," Kale murmured. "We don't have any other choice," Lena said, offering him a reassuring smile. "This is about more than just survival. This is about showing the galaxy that not all is lost, and that there are those who will fight for what's right, no matter the cost." Back aboard the human ship, preparations were underway for the confrontation. The crew was readying the defense systems, checking weapons, and ensuring that everything was in place. Lena walked through the halls, offering words of encouragement where she could, but inside, she felt the pressure building. The Council was coming. It was only a matter of time before they made their move. As the fleet drew closer, the tension in the air grew thicker. The Council ships were now visible in the distance, their sleek, imposing forms slowly filling the viewports. Lena could see the power they possessed, and she knew they would not hesitate to use it. But what the Council didn't understand was that humanity was not like the other civilizations they had crushed. Humanity had a fierce determination, and when they decided to protect something, they would stop at nothing to defend it. Lena stood at the bridge, watching as the fleet prepared to enter their system. She knew that the next few hours would decide the fate of Tellara and its people. But there was one thing she was certain of. Humanity had already made its choice, and no threat from the Council could make them turn back. "We're ready," she said, her voice calm but filled with purpose. "Let them come." And with that, the human ship prepared to face the silent battle ahead, knowing that no matter what happened, they would not let the Tellerans fall without a fight. The air aboard the human ship was thick with anticipation. Commander Lena Foster stood on the bridge, watching as the fleet of Council ships slowly moved closer to Tellara. The looming threat of war was real now, and the crew could feel the tension in every corner of the ship. The approaching ships were massive, their sleek, alien forms a silent reminder of the power the Council wielded. But despite the looming danger, Lena felt a sense of calm settle over her. She knew the crew was ready. Humanity had always faced challenges, but this was different. This was not just about survival. This was about standing up for what was right. They had come to Tellara to help, and they would not back down now. "We can't let them intimidate us," Lena said to her first officer, Lieutenant Harris, who was standing nearby. His face was tense, but his voice was steady as he responded. "We won't, Commander. We've trained for this. We have our defense systems in place, and the crew is ready." Lena nodded. The ship's crew had been working nonstop to prepare for the worst. They had made every necessary adjustment to the ship's weapons, shields, and communication systems. They were ready for whatever the Council might throw at them. On the surface of Tellara, the Tellarans were also feeling the weight of the moment. Kale, Their leader stood with his people, watching the skies as the human ships prepared for the confrontation. The once barren landscape was now dotted with human machines and equipment, all working to restore the planet. There was a new hope among the Tellarans, but it was also clear that they were frightened. "I never thought it would come to this," Kale said quietly to Lena, who had joined him on the surface. His voice was heavy with concern, but there was also determination. "We owe so much to your people, and yet I fear for your safety." Lena placed a hand on his shoulder, offering reassurance. "We've made a promise to help, Kale. We're not backing down. We'll fight for your future." Kale looked at her, his eyes full of gratitude and worry. "But the Council's power is vast. How can you hope to stand against them?" Lena looked up at the sky, where the massive ships of the Council were now clearly visible. She didn't have all the answers, but she knew one thing for sure. Humanity had always fought against overwhelming odds, and they had always found a way. "We won't fight them head-on," she said, her voice calm but firm. "We'll use the strength of our resolve. We will show them that humanity is not just a small, insignificant species. We are capable of great things, and we will not let Tellara fall." Back aboard the human ship, the crew prepared for the worst. The Council fleet was closing in, and all systems were on high alert. The communications officer, Lieutenant Taylor, was monitoring the Council ship's movements, trying to predict their next move. "They're getting closer," Taylor reported. "They'll be within range in less than an hour." Lena nodded. The time to act was almost upon them. She turned to her crew, her voice filled with purpose. "Everyone, listen up," Lena said, her eyes sweeping across the room. "We're not just fighting to protect Tellara. We're fighting to show the galaxy that there is still hope. That no matter how powerful the Council is, there are still those who will stand against them. We fight for the future of all who are struggling, just as we fought for our own." The crew nodded, their faces a mix of determination and readiness. They had made the decision to stand by the Tellarans, and they would not back down. Meanwhile, the Council ships had stopped their advance, hovering just outside the range of the human ship. The silence was deafening. The waiting seemed endless, but it was clear that something was about to happen. The Council was waiting for the humans to make a move. They knew the humans couldn't stay passive forever. Lena paced slowly, her mind racing. What would the Council do next? Would they make the first move, or would they give in to humanity's resolve? She couldn't predict it, but she knew they would not give up without a fight. Suddenly, the communication officer's voice broke the silence. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the Council." Lena quickly moved to the communication panel, her heart beating faster. "Put it through," she said, her voice steady but filled with tension. The screen flickered to life, and the face of High Chancellor Viren appeared. His reptilian eyes narrowed as he looked at Lena. "This is your final warning, Commander Foster," he said coldly. "Leave Tellara now, or face the consequences." Lena's eyes locked with his, her expression unyielding. "We've made our choice, Chancellor," she said firmly. "We will not leave. We will not turn our backs on those in need." Viren's gaze darkened, but he didn't respond immediately. Instead, he simply nodded. "Very well. You have chosen your path. But understand this, you will regret this decision." The screen went dark, and the room fell silent once more. The Council had issued its threat, but Lena was undeterred. "We're not backing down," she repeated to her crew, her voice firm and resolute. "Prepare for what comes next. We stand together." The calm before the storm had ended. Now, it was time to face the consequences. Whatever the Council decided to do next, humanity was ready. The moment the communication screen went dark, the tension in the air thickened. Commander Lena Foster stood still for a moment, processing the words of the High Chancellor. He had warned them, but there was no turning back now. The Council had made their threat clear, and now humanity would show them what they were made of. The human fleet was on high alert. The crew moved quickly, checking systems, ensuring everything was ready for whatever came next. Lena walked briskly to the command center, where Lieutenant Harris was already waiting. "Commander, they just moved into attack range," Harris said, his voice calm, but his eyes were sharp, focused on the monitors in front of him. "They're preparing for a full assault." Lena nodded, her face set with determination. "Hold position. We won't fire first. Let them make the first move." "Understood, Commander." Outside the ship, the Council fleet loomed, massive and menacing. The ships were sleek, their hulls shining in the light of the distant stars. Each one was equipped with powerful weapons, designed to overwhelm any opponent. But Lena didn't flinch. Humanity had always been the underdog, but they had survived against impossible odds before. They had no intention of backing down now. On the surface of Tellara, the situation was equally tense. The Tellarans had gathered in their city centers, watching the skies as the two fleets prepared to clash. The once dying planet had begun to bloom again, and now it felt like everything was at risk. Kale, the Tellaran leader, stood alongside Lena, watching the human ship hover above them. "We've done everything we can to rebuild," Kale said quietly, his eyes scanning the horizon. "But this feels like the end." Lena turned to him, her expression softening. "This isn't the end. It's the beginning. We're fighting for you, for all of us." Kale nodded, though the worry in his eyes remained. He knew how much was at stake. The Council's might was terrifying, but he had come to trust the humans. They had proven that they were capable of miracles. He only hoped that they were strong enough to face what was coming. Back aboard the human ship, the crew continued their preparations. The atmosphere was heavy, but there was also a sense of purpose. The officers worked in sync, coordinating with the pilots and technicians to ensure the ship's defenses were ready. Lena could feel the resolve of her crew in every corner of the ship. As the countdown to impact neared, Lena stood at the bridge, her eyes fixed on the distant Council ships. The tension was unbearable, but she kept her focus. There was no room for fear. They had already made their choice. Suddenly, the first strike came. A barrage of energy blasts from the Council fleet fired at the human ship, lighting up the space between them with bursts of bright, destructive energy. The ship rocked under the force of the blast, but it held strong. The shields flared, absorbing the energy, but Lena could feel the pressure. They couldn't take many more hits like that. "Shields holding," Lieutenant Harris called out. "But we're taking damage." Lena's mind raced, but she remained calm. "Return fire, but do not initiate full-scale combat. We need to show them we're not a threat, yet." The ship's weapons powered up, and human lasers streaked across the sky, targeting the Council ship's outer defenses. The blasts hit, but the Council ships were well armored. It wasn't enough to disable them, but it sent a clear message. Humanity wasn't going down without a fight. "Brace for another strike," Harris shouted, but Lena was already moving. She had made the decision. They couldn't afford to sit back and wait for the Council to attack again. The time for passive defense was over. "Fire at will," Lena commanded. The human fleet responded immediately. The lasers continued to fire, targeting weak points on the Council ships. Explosions rippled through the void, and the Council ships began to lose their cohesion. But it wasn't enough to stop the enemy entirely. They had underestimated the power of the Council. "We need reinforcements," Lieutenant Taylor called out, monitoring communications. "We've sent a distress signal to the fleet." Nothing yet. Lena knew they didn't have much time. The Council's counterattack would be swift. She turned to Kale, who had joined her on the bridge. "Is there any way you can help?" Lena asked, her voice tight with urgency. "Anything we can do to level the playing field?" Cal's expression hardened. "I have something. A weapon, hidden beneath the surface of Tellara. But it's unstable. We could try, but it may not be enough." Lena didn't hesitate. "Do it, whatever it takes." Kale nodded. "It's not just a weapon. It's an ancient artifact from our people's past. It can turn the tide, but it requires immense energy. If it works, it could shift the balance of power. Then we're counting on it, Lena said, her gaze never leaving the enemy fleet. The human ship continued to fight, but it was clear the Council would not be easily defeated. As explosions rocked the space around them, Lena knew the battle was only just beginning. But she also knew one thing: humanity would not give up. They would fight until the very end. Kale quickly moved to activate the weapon. The hope of the Tellarans now rested in their hands. The battle raged on, the hum of energy blasts filling the silence of space. The human ship, though battered, stood firm against the Council fleet's relentless onslaught. The shields flickered but held, a testament to humanity's resolve. Commander Lena Foster watched the chaotic scene unfold on the bridge, her eyes narrowing in concentration. They were holding their own, but the fight was far from over. "Damage reports are coming in," Lieutenant Harris said, his voice tense. "We've taken hits to our hull. Shields are down to 45%. We can't keep this up much longer." Lena's mind raced. She knew they couldn't rely on their defenses forever. But they had one card left to play: Kel's weapon. The ancient artifact hidden beneath the surface of Tellara was humanity's only hope now. She turned to Kel, who had returned to the bridge after activating the device. His face was pale, but there was a glint of determination in his eyes. "It's ready," Kale said, his voice steady despite the pressure. "But it's going to take everything. We have to activate it fully." Lena nodded. "Do it. We don't have time to waste." The weapon Kale spoke of was unlike anything Lena had ever seen. The Tellaran artifact was an ancient energy source, powerful enough to change the course of the battle. But its unstable nature made it a risky gamble. If it worked, it could turn the tide in their favor. If it failed, they could lose everything. Kale moved to the control panel, his hands flying over the buttons. A low hum filled the air as the weapon powered up, its core glowing with an intense, otherworldly light. "We need more time," Kale said, his voice strained. "The energy surge is unstable. It's too much for the system to handle. If I push it further..." Lena's mind raced. She knew the risk, but there was no choice. "Push it. We'll take the risk." With a deep breath, Kale pressed the final sequence. The ship's systems hummed louder, a brilliant flash of light filling the bridge. Outside the ship, the Council fleet paused, sensing the growing energy pulse. Then, without warning, the weapon fired. A beam of pure energy shot from the surface of Tellara, cutting through the vast expanse of space like a blazing comet. The Council fleet attempted to evade, but the beam was too fast, too powerful. It tore through their ships with devastating force, disabling their weapons and shields in a single strike. The Council ships faltered, their once imposing forms now vulnerable to the human fleet's attack. Lena stood at the command center, her heart pounding in her chest. "It worked," she whispered, a sense of awe filling her. The Council ships were retreating, their once strong defenses shattered by the weapon's power. But even as they celebrated their success, Lena knew the battle wasn't truly over. The Council would not let this defeat go unanswered. They had shown their strength, but now the galaxy would be watching. The communications officer, Lieutenant Taylor, spoke up. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the Council." Lena's heart skipped a beat as the screen flickered to life. High Chancellor Viren's cold, reptilian face appeared on the screen once more. This time, his expression was different. His eyes were narrowed, and his voice was filled with fury. "You have won this round, Commander Foster," Viren said, his tone dripping with disdain. "But do not think this means the end. The Council will not be defeated so easily. Your victory is temporary. We will return, and when we do, you will wish you had never interfered." Lena stood tall, unshaken by his threats. "We won't back down, Chancellor. Humanity will always stand for what's right, no matter the cost." Viren's eyes flashed with anger, but before he could speak, the screen cut off. The Council had retreated, for now. But the war was far from over. Lena knew that the Council's power was vast, and they would not forget the humans' defiance. But as the human ship hovered above the surface of Tellara, surrounded by the remaining Council ships in retreat, Lena felt something shift within her. The galaxy had watched this battle unfold, and humanity had proven its strength. No longer would they be overlooked or dismissed as weak. Kale stepped forward, a look of gratitude on his face. "You've saved us, Commander. The Tellarans will never forget this." Lena gave him a small smile. "We didn't just save you. We saved ourselves. We all have a future now." As the sun began to rise over the Tellaran horizon, the once dying world now basked in the light of a new dawn. The planet was healing. The people were rebuilding, and humanity had earned their place in the galaxy. The Council might return, but they would no longer be able to ignore humanity's strength. And as Lena looked out at the stars, she knew one thing for sure. The fight was far from over, but humanity had proven that they would never give up. The galaxy would remember them, and their courage would inspire countless others to stand up for what was right. Humanity had chosen to save, and in doing so, they had secured a future for all.